It is now time to begin the formal portion of tonight's ceremony. But before we do, let's give a warm round of applause to the Maxwell Club staff for the fine meal served tonight. Also, please charge your glasses as we will have toasts to our Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force who are no longer with us.
2 decades after the Air Force became a separate service, momentum swelled for a new type of leader, an enlisted airman who could represent and inspire the enlisted force from the highest levels of the Air Force.
As early as March 1964, the Air Force Association's Enlisted Council recommended we establish a Sergeant Major of the Air Force. The individual would advise the Secretary of the Air Force and Chief of Staff of the Air Force and be a representative to whom the enlisted airmen could freely express their opinions and recommendations on matters ranging from mission effectiveness to personal problems.
The proposal was turned down. Air Force leaders felt the position risked undermining the chain of command, but a year later, it became clear actions from other services and elected leaders on Capitol Hill would force their hand.
The House Armed Services Committee introduced a bill that would mandate each service create a senior enlisted advisor position to advise the leadership on the morale, welfare, and career opportunities of the enlisted men and women of their respective service.
Air Force leaders recognized the momentum and enthusiastic support for the position from the enlisted force. General John McConnell, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, began to solicit advice and consider his options, and in August 1966 adopted the idea by announcing the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. The position was to be filled by an individual who would become the highest-ranking enlisted member of the Air Force.
The Air Force established selection criteria for the position, which whittled potential nominees down to 2,200 Chief Master Sergeants from the more than 5,900 chiefs on active duties. Commanders nominated 21 chiefs, and the selection board narrowed them down to 3 finalists. In January 1967, General McConnell announced Chief Master Sergeant Paul W. Airy as the first Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Airy began tackling the problems of personnel retention. He felt it was a consequence of poor pay, numerous remote assignments, and an inequitable promotion system. His efforts helped produce the weighted airman promotion system that was adopted in 1970. I propose a toast. To the first Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
To Chief Airy. As the second to take the reins, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Donald Harlow, continued to cut a path through the misunderstanding, confusion, and mistrust that surrounded the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force position. Ever vigilant, he campaigned for and refined the newly established weighted airman promotion system. He garnered continued flight pay for senior NCOs attending in-resident PME and worked towards equal per diem for enlisted and officers. I propose a toast to the second Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
To Chief Harlow. The third Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Richard Kissling, placed NCO professional development at the forefront of discussion. This persistence paid off when the Senior NCO Academy was approved by Congress in 1972 and officially opened its doors in January 1973. The original plan was to restrict its attendance to first sergeants, but Chief Kissling won the battle to make professional development available to all senior NCOs. His concern for such enlisted issues as housing, pay, promotions, education and training, and assignments earned him the respect of his peers and the nickname the GI's Man in Washington. I propose a toast to the 3rd Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
To Chief Kissling. Under the 4th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Thomas Barnes, the position of Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force worked to ensure equality amongst the ranks and races. He took immense pride in bringing about the Air Force Social Actions Program. He labored to eliminate barriers for women, convincing the Air Force to use them in non-traditional roles. He understood the value of continuing to educate airmen and established the service's firm commitment to enlisted PME. I propose a toast to the 4th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
Chief Barnes. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Robert Gaylor's goal as the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force was to serve as a conduit of information. He addressed low morale and the weak military public image head on. He is credited with securing a policy allowing senior airmen to transport their families at government expense during permanent change of station moves, a solid step towards improving quality of life. He educated the force to eliminate the stereotypes and prejudices, working against equal opportunities for minorities and women.
What made it so good was we were effecting change. More women, the racial scene, drug and alcohol abuse. So you celebrate change. Don't ask to tell, you say, it's fair, it's better, it's time, it should be. I'm going to do what I can in my meager way to facilitate it. If I ever have a legacy, whatever that is, it'll be he liked leadership. I'm a student of leadership. Leadership is my bag. My God, when an airman writes me a note, an email out of the clear blue and says, "You made me think," I go, "Wow, that's money in the bank." I wouldn't take $1 million for that. To think that maybe you help somebody, because so many people help me.
Retention rates were also dropping when Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, James McCoy, took office. As the 6th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, his first challenge was to improve those numbers. In late 1979, he testified before Congress that airmen were not re-enlisting because they could not make ends meet on enlisted pay. He worked with recruiters to get the right people in the Air Force and sought to improve the PME system from basic training to the NCO and senior NCO level. During his tenure, the Stripes for Exceptional Performers program was instituted to provide an alternate promotion option for enlisted members.
It's not supposed to be like when we were serving. Because we're better. We're more we're more educated. I look at the educational level of our enlisted force today when I go to the senior academy. It's amazing. We've got people with PhDs, enlisted people with PhDs, master's degree. When I retired in 1981, I was one of the few chief master sergeants in the Air Force, not of the Air Force, in the Air Force, that had a bachelor's degree. And that's because I came in the service 2.5 years of college. So I almost got drafted. But I finished, tuition assistance and so forth. So, I believe that, we've got to keep continuing to do that and learn from those of us that are in the past.
Upon assuming his new position, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Arthur Bud Andrews' top priority was back to basics. Our 7th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force believed the most vexing problems were pay, benefits, recruitment, and retention. His focus was on cultural change, believing it was time for airmen to think we instead of me, me, me. He challenged NCOs to take care of their people and accomplish the mission, and dispelled the days of leadership by stress. I propose a toast to the 7th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
To Chief Andrews. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Sam Parrish tackled a range of enlisted personnel issues, such as the fixed phase point for promotion to senior airmen, which promoted qualified airmen to senior airmen at a set point in their initial enlistment, allowing them a chance to be selected for staff sergeant during their first enlistment. He also obtained approval to allow flight line personnel to wear a functional badge, leading to airmen in all specialties being authorized functional badges identifying their career field. As the 8th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, he established the John Levito Award for each level of PME and implemented the First Sergeant of the Year program Air Force-wide.
And when I became Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, that was one of the first 3 things after I met with the former Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force. Had a week's meeting with them and says, what do we need to do? And I picked their brains, and the Levito Award was born, the First Sergeant of the Year program was born, things of that nature. And went to General Gabriel with it. We were flying to Europe on a visit, and he read that memo from the meeting while he was in his compartment on speckled trout. And the aide comes out and says, the chief wants to see you. So I go back. He says, I like it. When we get to USAFE, release it to the world. I said, sir, it ain't been staffed. I said, I'll prepare a message for you. Twix is what we called them in those days. I'll prepare a message for you to send to the Air Force announcing it. He says, nope, it's your program, sign it. I said, General, we ain't staffed it. Okay, do it. So it was the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force program for the Air Force was born. Approved on that airplane.
Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force James Binneker's first order of business was tackling the Airman Performance Report, a system of ratings from 1 to 9. To more accurately differentiate between airmen, the Enlisted Performance Report was created along with the means to document performance feedback. Next, the 9th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force set his sights on admitting Master Sergeants to the Senior NCO Academy. He believed Giving airmen all the responsibility they could handle would result in attracting and retaining higher quality people in the Air Force. He also worked to give minorities and women more responsibilities throughout the Air Force. I propose a toast to the 9th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
To Chief Beneker. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Gary Finkston's focus was the Air Force withdrawdown and budget. The 10th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force worked to restore BAS for troops living in field conditions and increase the SGLI amounts. But the toughest challenge he faced was the Air Force downsizing. To avoid involuntary separations, he implemented the Voluntary Separation Incentive and Special Separation Bonus programs. His idea to provide career paths and milestones in line with the officer career model led to the Career Field Education and Training Plan, 3-level and 7-level technical schools for all career fields, and mandatory in-residence PME. He also found himself involved with the Air Force specialty codes opening up to women, assignment policies including the Equal and Equals Plus, and even the introduction of the new senior NCO stripes. I propose a toast to the 10th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
Chief Finkston. The year Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force David Campanelli began his tour, the military launched a new TRICARE health program. The change introduced a great deal of anxiety. The 11th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force led the charge to alleviate those feelings through education. When Congress threatened to change the retirement system to High 1, effectively reducing retirement pay, he quickly responded, standing before Congress in the successful fight against the proposed change. He also championed the adoption of the 1+1 dormitory, giving each airman their own room.
Well, again, it was part of a change, and bases were closing, and in a lot of cases hospitals were closing, and we only had so many people we could keep in the force, and as valuable as the medical crew was to us, we had to keep a majority of the force in the warfighting positions because we were a deployed force. And so we needed something to fill in a gap, and I think it's turned out to be an incredible success. And so I think the bigger thing was just being visible and communicating, and I think it's a sign of leaders when there's something controversial that has to be talked about, that you in fact face the crowds. And I can remember being in every movie theater imaginable, never watching a show, but being there giving presentations for people about TRICARE. And it wasn't just active duty people, it was retired people as well, who had become used to the idea of going to the base hospital and getting care on a standby basis if that's what was required. So we're able to make that click, relieve a lot of the anxiety for people, and just coach them through the process and make sure they were armed with as much information as they needed.